SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Have you been seriously injured? Mama Justice is here for you. Our medical team partners with top-notch doctors, surgeons, therapists, and urologists, ensuring a comprehensive recovery journey. If you've been injured, call Mama Justice today. We're here for you.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I got to tell you, there is nothing like the adrenaline rush of the flashing red light going green the first time hosting a new radio show. Gerard is off this morning. My name is Scott Sands. It's nice to be here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I've been a guest with Gerard and Richard a few times. I appreciate the opportunity to guest host the MidDays show back in what I call my home state of Mississippi. And again, Rhino, it's great to have you here. You and Alex and Will and everybody on the SuperTalk team have been terrific. I thought yesterday afternoon that the big story we would talk about today would be the release of the Epstein files. And instead, the bigger story is the lack of information that we got from the Epstein files. I'll get into that in a minute, but I thought maybe I would take an opportunity to introduce myself so you know who is talking with you for the next couple of hours. And Rhino, most importantly, I sent you a note earlier to have a buzzer ready because doing a new radio show, I'm sure there will be multiple times throughout the day that I either get something wrong about what's happening in Mississippi or screw up the name of the radio station. Don't be afraid to buzz in and tell me I screwed something up.
Could be fun.
Yeah, we got a deal on that, and I appreciate all of your help on the show today. So here's the deal. I'm actually from the home studio in Ohio, but I'm a Southern boy by nature. I was born in Mobile and went to college in Mobile at Spring Hill College. And I consider the coast my home. Lived there for a long time in high school and did radio shows in Hattiesburg and on the Gulf Coast and have so many friends still there. And I don't get back as much as I would like, but I hope to have the opportunity to visit more often and see friends on the Gulf Coast. And it's fun listening to SuperTalk Mississippi because I'll hear Patty Steele hopping in with the traffic reports, and she and I worked together at a radio station in Gulfport years ago, and so many longtime friends on the SuperTalk team and the TeleSouth team. So it's great to be here with everybody today. The C-Spire text line is open at 601-879-6006. The Twitter, and you can find me on social media as well, at Scott Sands Media, if you have comments. This afternoon, we're going to cover a wide range of stuff happening in the state, as well as some national headlines. One of the big stories today, of course, is that President... What was that? What did I get wrong?
The text line.
Did I get the text line wrong?
Yeah.
How did I get the text line wrong?
601-879-4395.
4395. Where did I get the other number from?
I don't know, but they just got a whole bunch of texts. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I should send them a text and apologize for that. 601-879-4395, the C-Spire text line. Man, do I have to put $1 in the jar every time I make a mistake?
Nah, I'm sure that'll be the only time I actually use the buzzer.
No, I would put the over-under at least 7.
Well, there is one thing we usually do on Fridays, and that's I remind everybody it's Friday, y'all. Right.
Yeah. And we'll try to have some fun this afternoon and this morning as well. Dan in Hattiesburg just sent a text. What station in Hattiesburg? I was Scott in the morning on the top 40 station back in the day, SL 100, which I'm sure is still around. Ukrainian President Zelensky is meeting with Donald Trump at the White House today in the midst of all of the peace talks with Russia to try to find an end to the prolonged war in Ukraine. And there have been hints about a possible agreement to be signed during this meeting granting America ownership of Ukraine's rare earth minerals as a form of repayment for military support and the billions of dollars that we've sent to Ukraine over the last few years. Russia trying to muscle in with a similar deal to offer mineral rights in Russian-held areas. And everybody seems to be interested in this idea. Zelensky wants a victory plan to secure peace. We'll get some thoughts on that from Hogan Gidley in a few minutes, as well as Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer next hour. And I'm tracking this story as well, the suspicious death of Gene Hackman and his wife. We're not really getting a lot of new information on this. Michelle Pollino will join us in the final hour of the show. And in the horrific description of the bodies as being mummified, and some of the conditions and the reports suggest suspicious circumstances surrounding their death. Their dog was also found dead on the scene, but a couple of their other pets were alive. So some of the initial thoughts that it may have been something like carbon monoxide poisoning may not make sense, and reports of pills being scattered around certainly will put a damper on the beginning of the Oscars weekend. And today, Rhino, I don't know, have you gone to buy anything today?
I have not. I managed to make it through the morning unscathed.
Now, did you do that on purpose, or are you participating in the one-day so-called economic blackout that's supposed to be happening today?
No, it was actually just because I had a bit of a slow start this morning and had to go ahead and get to work. I was going to stop and get a different breakfast, but instead I had to make a quick breakfast at home.
I did make a coffee run earlier this morning, and we'll probably go grocery shopping. So John Schwartz is leading a national economic blackout today, urging consumers to hit the pause button on what he says are non-essential purchases. These kind of economic blackouts, these boycotts, really don't make any sense to me. And I know that Al Sharpton has also led some of this as a counter to counter the attack on DEI. Prohibitions under the Trump administration. Al Sharpton putting out a message not to make any purchases, not to shop online or in store, no Amazon, no Walmart, no Best Buy, no McDonald's or fast food stores, no gas, no major retailers, not to use the credit or debit cards for spending. Buy all you need before Friday, February 28th is what Al Sharpton put out this week, which, if you're trying to make an economic impact, makes absolutely 0 sense. Because you're just going to front load or back load all of your purchases of whatever you need. And if you want to go to buy a new TV today, if you need a new television and you avoid it today, chances are you went out and got it yesterday, or you'll just go to Best Buy or wherever tomorrow. So these companies, these businesses aren't really feeling any impact from this economic boycott. And if you're really going to go all in on the concept, turn off your power, turn off your water, turn off your cable television. If you're going to black out, then you really need to go all in on the concept. What I would encourage you to do instead is support local businesses. And I'm sure that there's a backlash on social media of everybody who wants to double their purchases today. None of that. That just means that whatever you double up on today, you're not going to be buying tomorrow or later in the week. So it all cancels out, and none of these boycotts ever make any sense to me. I don't know about you, Rhino. I don't know if you've ever participated in a boycott of any sort.
No, my opinion of boycotts is unless you have a majority of the population in your corner and it lasts long enough to make a major impact on people's buying habits, boycotts are worthless. It's just people wanting attention and wanting to point out they don't like something. Right.
None of this ever makes any sense. And you can kind of see the sides being divided on social media as a result of this. I know we've only got a couple of minutes here, but I did want to hit on the Epstein files release yesterday, which wound up, as I expected, to be a bit of a nothing burger. And now people from the right seem to be going after Pam Bondi for saying that she was lying to us, that she had the FBI file, she had the entire Epstein files on her desk and was ready to release them, and they would be explosive, and they wound up being released, and there was nothing there. I know when we have a little bit more time on this, I want to talk about some other things, but the most egregious aspect of this release yesterday to me was how it was handled. There were binders of files that were given to half a dozen social media influencers who then stood in front of the White House smiling. I saw a video of them doing a jig. Is that the term you still use in the South? Do people still dance a jig?
Oh, yeah. I think the younger generation just calls it a TikTok dance.
Right. They were being social media influencers and dancing and smiling and laughing. We're talking about hundreds of young women who were abused by Epstein and his friends, and they're celebrating this and laughing. And even the Republican House Judiciary Committee put out a tweet yesterday in the midst of the release with a link to the files. And when you click that link, it was Rick Astley. The House Judiciary Committee rickrolled people, and I don't understand the message that's sending when we're talking about sexual abuse and pedophilia. It's just the wrong message, I believe, for them to be sending at this time. And I'll get into some of the comments from Liz Wheeler and the other influencers who had access to these binders before everybody else. We may see some more phases. The FBI hasn't been raided yet by order of Pam Bondi, so there's a lot still to come in the story, and we may hopefully get some information on that. Hogan Gidley, former principal deputy White House spokesperson, will join me, and we'll talk about some of these other national headlines next. It's Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands from the Element Wealth Studios on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
I love hearing this music. This is a band called King Conga, and they were great friends of mine when I lived in Mississippi, in Hattiesburg on the coast. You went to a frat party anytime during that period. I'm sure you saw them play somewhere. I'm Scott Sands, sitting in for Middays with Gerard Gibert from the Element Wealth Studios on Super Talk, Mississippi. Hogan Gidley will join me in just a minute. Got some text messages coming in. Brian and Madison on the economic blackout said, if people participate, it will only hurt small businesses. So if you must participate, just avoid the big box stores and frequently shop the small business locations. Meanwhile, Jerry in Pontotoc said, I've always boycotted Al Sharpton. And Mike in Gulfport says, Sharpton is nuts. It's Friday. Unless they're broke, money will be spent. If Sharpton is in on something, I'm out of it. And a text message from Jeff in Macomb. I mentioned I worked in radio in Hattiesburg, and he said, I remember your April Fool's joke about state basketball, a classic. So, Rhino, I may have upset a lot of people I think this was 95 or 96 when Mississippi State made a run towards the Final Four in the NCAA tournament and were eliminated. Or maybe they made it in, and I on April Fool's Day, whichever way it went, I can't remember the exact setup. I faked an entire news story, and this would probably get me in a lot of trouble with the lawyers today. But I faked some sort of news story that because of maybe their travel schedule or their grades, that they were not going to be allowed to play in the tournament. And as you might imagine, right, I don't even know if you were alive in 95, 96, but
oh yeah, I remember
can imagine
that day.
People were a little upset with me on that.
Yeah, I was a wee lad of 11 in 96, but I remember State going to the Final Four, and I remember being very upset when Syracuse knocked them out, and I've had a grudge against Syracuse ever since.
So how are the teams doing this season? It seems like the SEC has, we've dominated football for years, but it seems like the basketball and baseball teams are also doing well this season.
Yeah, they started off really hot in certain ways. It seems like both teams have stars that they can rely on when they actually want to show up, but when those stars don't want to show up, it doesn't tend to bode well for good results.
The Southern Miss Eagles will play Troy tonight. Oklahoma is at Ole Miss tomorrow, and Mississippi State 24 playing LSU tomorrow afternoon as well. Some baseball action. I think Southern Miss and TCU play later this afternoon. Wright State from here in Ohio at Ole Miss, and I think Mississippi State's baseball team is playing Rice right now or shortly, kind of a day game. Joining me now here on Middays with Gerard Gibert, and I'm Scott Sands, is Hogan Gidley, Vice Chair of the Center for Election Integrity, former National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign, and Principal Deputy Press Secretary at the White House in President Trump's first term. Hogan, it's great to have you on, and it's I'm sure, fun for you to be on in Mississippi as well as an Ole Miss grad.
Well, Scott, hey, it's Brian. I don't know if you can see me or hear me. I can see myself on with you.
Oh, hey, Brian. So we've got our guests mixed up just a little bit.
I'm ready. I can be ready for whatever you need. I don't want to get in Hogan's way either, because that was a great setup.
I don't know how the technical stuff works, and I'm not sure if this is deserving of a buzzer or not. Right now. Yeah, well, so that puts our over under on two buzzers. Brian, it's good to have you on. Sure, I guess we can go directly to this and make some adjustments along the way. Why not?
We'll do it live. Jodice, we'll do it live, man.
You're National Press Secretary with the American Federation for Children, and I heard the morning show today on SuperTalk Mississippi talking about this very issue, talking about school choice. The state of Mississippi has been struggling with this debate for some time now and can't seem to get it right.
Well, Scott, it's great to be with you, and I'm sure we'll get everybody in the appropriate order as you need here. You know, it's interesting. We're seeing just this sort of rapid movement for school choice across America. You know, I live in North Carolina. My home state pulled 50,000 kids off of an opportunity scholarship waitlist last year. We're seeing this continual momentum building. We even hear the president talk about wanting to send education back to the states. And then we look to my home state where I was born, about 44 years ago, born in Columbus, Mississippi, by way of Columbus Air Force Base. And, Mississippi kind of lags behind as it relates to what educational choice options might be available. And so we're hoping that as this momentum kind of continues to build across the country, maybe we can look around and states can look around and say, hey, what is happening? What can we do to expand these options? Because candidly, for far too long, we've just been in this system that has grown bigger and bigger and bigger and has told people because you live here, because your zip code's this, and oftentimes because your income is this, you can only have access to these schools. And that's just not good enough for students across America. And so we're hoping that we can continue to see just some more growth here and some more expansion across the country, and in Mississippi specifically.
Is there a template that you've seen work in other states? Is there a federal standard that we should strive towards in individual states for school choice options?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what you've got to do is state legislatures really have to take a look at what could work best for their students in that state. It would not be appropriate for me to say, hey, look, the model that we have in North Carolina, just copy and paste in Mississippi, or even the model that they have across the border in Alabama, which, by the way, has about $100 million in a program, a lot of kids being able to benefit. And I know there's always competitive juices flowing down there in the SEC. So, not too far away, Alabama's got some more options. It wouldn't be appropriate to suggest, hey, let's do exactly what they're doing there. But what it's about is let's find ways to empower parents, families, and students with educational choice. So whether that's expanding charter access, and not a lot of charters in the great state of Mississippi, whether that's making sure that regulations aren't too burdensome for our homeschool community, or whether that's creating tax credits, opportunity scholarships, education savings accounts for families to use towards private school tuition, all those options on the table, we tend to see, provide families with, hey, let's go see what the best fit for us is. And, we're seeing, Scott, across the country, and even in my own household, kids don't learn the same, even if they're from the same family. They might need different opportunities. So to have just robust educational options, while at the same time ensuring that those community schools are getting what they need right across the great state of Mississippi, that only helps lift it a little bit more. So you can look and see what other states are doing, but legislatures have to say, what's going to be the best fit for what we've got here? I know this much. We've got a special needs program that's helping maybe about 1,000 kids in Mississippi right now. There is more that can be done in educational choice and freedom in Mississippi. And so look, we urge legislators to look at it. They've exported some things in the past, but the momentum right now is real. When the president sits in the Oval Office and says, I love school choice, we have to send education back to the states, this should be a rallying cry, especially in conservative states like Mississippi.
So, Brian, you mentioned Alabama. Mississippi surrounded by other states that have already enacted school choice: Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana. And I don't understand why Mississippi has taken so long. A supermajority, Governor Tate Reeves. The concern I would have, and help alleviate my concern on this, and one of the benefits perhaps of having a national Department of Education is setting some standards for every state. We're already seeing the disparity between states in the educational system. If every state is making their own rules and setting their own standards, isn't there a danger perhaps that some of those differences could grow even wider?
Well, let me first address sort of why, maybe why not, is sort of the beginning of the question there. It's hard to say, right? I mean, you've got to take a look at what's happening in states to know why it sometimes takes so long to get more things like school choice. But even use Texas as an example. Sort of a pretty red state there. You look at Texas and you think sort of conservative values across states. It's taken a while to get school choice moving in Texas. Now, they will get it done this year. Governor Abbott dedicated to it, state legislature dedicated to it, and they're about to create the largest day one school choice program in the history of the country, meaning once this passes, and it will pass in Texas, you're talking about $1 billion and upwards of 90,000 kids on day one will have access to a program. And so you've got to look at states and say, look, sometimes it just takes a while to get there. To your question about sort of the federal government's involvement in education, I think the furthest the federal government can be away from educating students in our states, the better. I mean, we've looked at 40 years of the Department of Education, and while throughout that entire 40 years, almost my entire lifetime, test scores have been stagnant, if not improving at all. And so we've got to do something different, returning education back to the states, let legislatures in the state empower families with choice in education, and then put those mechanisms in place. And then I'm just a believer that the ultimate accountability lies with parents and families. They know their kids best. You can see that sign over my shoulder, parents know best. They know what's happening as it relates to their kids' education. And too, Scott, and maybe you saw this, we saw it in our own household, families have seen it across America. COVID did show us where there were some inequities. Families saw the way in which education was delivered to their children, the way they consumed it and then pushed it back out, maybe like they never had seen before. And I think it showed where there were some gaps. And so we're just believers that the more options you can put in front of families, it can just help in those opportunities.
Brian, I want to pick up there and hold you over to the next segment if we can. Brian Jodice is National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. You can find them on X at AFC Press. It's Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk Mississippi from the Element Wealth Studios.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
How y'all doing? It's great to be here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the Element Wealth Studio. I'm Scott Sands in for Gerard. And right now, I think I know where I screwed up at the very beginning of the show. I think I gave the Element Wealth phone number out instead of the C Spire text line number. So if you're thinking about planning for retirement, if you have a plan, go to myelementwealth.com. The C Spire text line, the correct number is 601-879-4395. And it's nice to see some texts coming in from some people who actually remember me on the radio in Mississippi a couple of decades ago. I'm from studios in Ohio now, and I can't wait for my next trip down to Mississippi for some good eating, mainly, because I'm a foodie. I love to eat, and there's no better food than across Mississippi, and we may be able to talk about that a little bit later this afternoon as well. We're talking school choice right now, though, with Brian Jodice. He's National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. And Brian, off the air, you mentioned that some of the conservatives in the state of Mississippi may not be exactly aligned with the plan that President Trump has for school choice.
Well, Scott, again, great to be with you. It's like two prodigal sons returning home. 44 years ago, I was born in Columbus, Mississippi, when my dad was at Columbus Air Force Base. And so it really is great to be on the air with you today, back in the home state, right? As an Air Force kid, when you grow up and you move around the country, it's people always ask, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from America because of, these reasons. So really it's great to be with you. Yeah, it's an interesting time.
My friends have bets on whether or not my Southern accent comes back out by the end of the show.
You've got the perfect radio voice, my friend, so stick to what you're doing there. It is interesting, it is a breath of fresh air from our perspective to watch the president sit in the White House and say, I love school choice, and say things like we have to send education back to the states. And so President Trump really does have the opportunity to be the school choice president. And that's pretty remarkable. But look, sometimes it takes states time to get on board and to find creative ways in which they can unlock educational freedom across the country. I think there are a few things to look at, and you can look at the way in which it's worked successfully in other states. My state, where I call home now in North Carolina, we've got an opportunity scholarship program, what folks might know as a voucher, that just last November pulled about 50,000 kids off the wait list. And then we continue to see more movement and momentum across the country. South Carolina has something in the works. Idaho just signed a new bill into law yesterday. Texas stands ready to create the largest day one school choice program in the history of the country. Tennessee just brought a new ESA program into the fold. So we're seeing this pick up. And then, states have to say what can be the best fit for our families, whether that's expanding access to public charter schools across Mississippi, whether that's ensuring that homeschool families have what they need to be able to be successful, or creating ways to expand what's already there for kids to be able to get access to some tuition assistance at private schools. So Mississippi has an ESA that's for special needs kids. I think they're looking to clear the wait list. I think Speaker White has been very strong on that and wanting to do that, and we commend him for that. And then look for other ways to do that. And then what's beautiful too, and I'll sort of end here for now, is that while all that's happening, there is a push in Washington to get education back to the states. And we think the best way to do that is through this Educational Choice for Children Act. The president wants to lead on that. House and Senate want to lead on that. And it's a way to create a tax incentive for individuals and corporations to donate to state-based scholarship granting organizations who can then help in any state. So even if states don't have very modest school choice programs, there could be a way in the future for more families to get some assistance.
Is it realistic that we could expect the dissolution of the Department of Education during the Trump administration, or at least I think what everybody would like to see, because you need to maintain some standards and guidelines, at least a dramatic reduction in the DOE?
Well, I think the president's made it pretty clear where he stands on that. But I also think Secretary McMahon once confirmed, and we anticipate that could happen early next week. Look, she's got a big job in front of her. You're talking about 40 years of a bureaucracy that's only grown while test scores across our country have remained stagnant. Something drastic has to change. And it doesn't mean that you have to shutter all programs or get rid of things that are very important for kids across our country, special needs programs, civil rights protections, but those things could happen differently. They could happen in different departments that are already in existence. Something has to change, that's for sure. The president's made it clear what he wants to do. And what we've said is, here's a great way to do it. Do things like the Educational Choice for Children Act, get funds back into families' hands, into kids' backpacks as quickly as possible, and then let them find the place that's the best fit. I mean, I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. We're having to navigate these very options ourselves as they go through their own educational journey. My educational journey started kindergarten, first and second grade in Columbus, Mississippi. Then we moved to Virginia, then to North Carolina, then to Virginia again to go to high school. Like, it's different everywhere you go. Kids are different in every different style. So we've got to just find more opportunities to unlock school choice options. And we're seeing that happen across the country. Hopefully we can see Mississippi do a little bit more as well.
So, Brian, Jordan and I talked about this the other day when I was sitting in with him, and it really boils down to the money. And our tax money funds education. I think many of us believe that the money should go where we decide it's best used. And right now in Mississippi, the average is about $7,000 per kid. If you've got the option to send your child to the school where you think they will learn best, isn't there a danger perhaps that some schools will suffer? And here's the where I'm going with this is I had the benefit of a Catholic education. My mom worked hard to put me through Catholic school, through elementary school in Mobile and St. John High School in Gulfport, which is now part of the St. Patrick system. And that was obviously a lot of work on her part to be able to afford those tuitions. But the best thing for me at St. John is I think we had like 500 kids in 7th through 12th grade. And I think that not only did we get a better education at St. John, but also the benefit of having small classrooms and the camaraderie and the social skills learned in that kind of environment. Is it possible that maybe if we're doing this, that we'll see smaller schools that have better focus, maybe using some of the charter and magnet school models?
I think it's a great example, and we've often heard for years that our classrooms are overcrowded from our friends in the traditional public school system. And so what we've said is, well, let's get a little more school choice in the mix. Let's get some more options available. Maybe we can use this as a way to help solve that. I mean, look, I've had the benefit of going to sort of schools of all shapes and sizes. You know, my grade school, Catholic educated as well, 4th through 8th grade, was K-8, about 300 kids. I mean, really, really small. Then I went to a massive, huge public high school in Northern Virginia when my dad was stationed at the Pentagon. Both of those were good fits for me. I liked being, you know, a big fish in a small pond and then, you know, moving in, kind of being a small fish in a big pond. But that worked well for me. It's not the case for every single kid. And so what we've said is if we can find ways to creatively take that funding, put it in that kid's backpack, let their families be empowered to decide where it goes, that's where we think we can have the most success. And even if you meet at the premise of, oh, you know, well, if we let the funds follow the kid, that's going to, we've heard this argument, quote, hurt our public schools. Why would a child or a family taking those dollars with them to the school of their choice hurt anyone? If anything, it could help maybe alleviate some of the pressure that are on those overcrowded schools. So I agree with you on the point, and I think the more options we have available, again, more robust charters, right? More robust private school choice programs, strengthening our traditional public schools. We're seeing more families gravitate towards this idea of homeschooling than ever before. So those options all have to be on the table.
And some of the focused education, some perhaps early educational focus on trades. We've got a couple of programs here where I live now in Toledo, Ohio. We have an aviation program that's part of the Toledo public school system where kids are going in learning aviation mechanics, and every airline in the country is looking for that skill. The Pensa Career Center here in Toledo, which is a massive school system, teaches everything from culinary arts to broadcasting, and kids go there to learn a specific trade, a specific skill. In Mississippi, there are a lot of rural areas, and as you're looking at this model of school choice and more private schools, charter schools, magnet schools, whatever the options may be, some of these communities in the state of Mississippi may not have that option, and the kids in those areas may suffer.
Yeah, you're right. They might not. And you take where I live in North Carolina, similar. We've got so many rural areas where that traditional public school might be the only option available. Candidly, that's okay, right? But if we can find ways to create more opportunities that might meet the needs of the students, you know, that's always the best. And you bring up a good point, right? It's finding creative ways to ensure that education is not a one size fits all. It can't be. We have too many options available. Kids learn very differently. One size fits all doesn't tend to work. And so even in those rural areas, and we've encouraged, you know, you mentioned that idea of micro schools. Maybe you find opportunities where you take a small group of students, meet their needs, right? But in those opportunities, then those resources from the state, right? Those state dollars that, you know, I would argue belong to those parents should be allocated towards their children. Let that go with them. Let that go with them. And it doesn't have to be a threat. It doesn't have to be some big line in the sand that we continue to draw, because that really only seeks to grow sort of this big education system. And that's not keeping it student-centered. What we've always argued is the beauty of school choice is it keeps it family and student-centered. And you can create learning environments like those ones you mentioned. And we can look for more college and career-ready students to be able to have success across our country. I mean, you want to talk about one of the areas of the Department of Education that could go away on day one. I mean, this federal student loan program is out of control. Kids are crippled with debt for the rest of their lives. There has to be a better, smarter way to be able to do that. Right. And promoting college career ready probably helps get us there as well.
Not everybody is cut out for college, and not everybody should go through that kind of financial burden as well. Instead, let's teach kids some skills that can help them become more employable right out of high school if that's the path they wish to take. He's Brian Jodice, National Press Secretary, American Federation for Children. I am on X, Brian Jodice, AFC Press on X as well. I am at Scott Sands Media on X. Brian, it's nice to have you on. I appreciate your time. We're in the Element Wealth studio in SuperTalk, Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands in for Gerard Gibert.
Be sure and check.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Some better than Ezra. I just noticed that it's the 30th anniversary of their release of Deluxe. I'm Scott Sands in for Gerard. You're on SuperTalk Mississippi from the Element Wealth studio. This is something I've debated for the last couple of days since I was asked to sit in for Gerard about whether or not to talk about. And I just want to bring it up briefly. And I don't even want to really mention anybody's name. And Rhino, I was just talking with you off the air about this, and Alex and I went back and forth about whether or not to bring this up. But I want to mention the story of the young lady from Ole Miss who was allegedly sleeping with her boyfriend's father, and that story just took off. It went viral, and it was all over social media for a couple of days. And in my opinion, it's become a pretty textbook case of why the whole platform and social media ecosystem needs to be torched and left to rot. And this is coming from a guy who was an early embracer, an early adopter of social media, and I probably have an account on literally every social media platform out there. This kid from Ole Miss gets smeared with a rumor, and within hours, the social media mob got her name trending. There was a meme coin. I don't know if you dive into crypto at all. There was a meme coin with her name on it that pumped and dumped. Death threats were flying her way. And this isn't about discourse or community. It's a feral, brain-dead horde with too much Wi-Fi and not enough sense. The burnerverse of the SEC and randos with burner accounts were not just spreading gossip, they were weaponizing it and doxing her and turning a young girl who just wanted an education and deliver life into a national punching bag, all for like clout and a quick crypto buck. And even big names who should know better, like Pat McAfee and Antonio Brown, couldn't resist tossing some fuel on the fire, which just proves that even pros are vultures in the game and trying to get clicks. And they weren't after the truth, because social media doesn't really care about facts. It's kind of become a slot machine for outrage junkies and grifters. I reached out to her family and actually exchanged a couple of messages with her dad after a statement was released. The FBI is apparently involved in the investigation, looking into forensic data to see who perhaps started these rumors, suspecting that it was some sort of fraternity prank that mushroomed out of control. And the dad tells me that he refuses to let his family be targeted, and he's committed to pursuing all criminal and civil liabilities available, and vows that he will find the people responsible for starting this. And the young lady, a member of a sorority at Ole Miss, says that she's the victim of a deliberate and coordinated cyber attack, and receiving thousands of harassing phone calls and texts of a sick and demented nature, some of which were suggesting that she take her own life. Her family has been blessed, she says, with resources to pursue the truth and defend our name via the legal system, but others aren't so fortunate, and as such, my father started a GoFundMe where 100% of the proceeds will be used to provide seed capital, establishing a foundation focusing on helping innocent victims of similar defamatory cyber attacks. She claims zero money will be used for personal purposes. She wants to use this attention and platform to raise awareness and funds for others who experience what she's gone through this week. I don't know in the state of Mississippi, Rhino, because obviously you got a ton of Ole Miss fans there and the Barstool accounts. Has it been talked about as much in Mississippi as perhaps in my little social media bubble scrolling through X feeds at night made it appear to be for a couple of days?
Yeah, I think this is one of those situations where no news outlet, especially no local news outlet, really wanted to touch it because it was all rumors and innuendo from the get-go with very little, if any, evidence for any wrongdoing. And because of that, it never really escaped the social media sphere. It never left Facebook and Twitter and all that. It was just kind of one of those viral things where, willingly or unwillingly, it seems like every day there's a main character on the internet that people on the internet pay tons of attention to. And sadly for these folks, they were the main characters in a really weird story.
Yeah, and sadly, I fall victim to it as well. I wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't catch my attention. But back when I was in college, I mean, this may have been at best some dorm room gossip and not a social media witch hunt. But because of what we've allowed social media to become and take over so much of our lives, people like this, an 18-year-old's innocent life has become a public chew toy. So I love and enjoy aspects of social media, but there are times like this where I say, shut it all down. And let's go back to talking trash in person like a civilized degenerate would do. Hi, I'm Scott Sands. Middays with Gerard Gibert from the Element Wealth studio on SuperTalk, Mississippi. The C Spire text line is open, and I would love to hear from you. I appreciate you listening to me this morning. 601-879-4395 is that number, which I got right this time, and only 2 incorrect buzzers so far this hour on Super Talk Mississippi. We'll be back right after the top of the hour with Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, Fox News, and Super Talk Mississippi News next.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
I can't believe that Mississippi still has not legalized online sports wagering. We'll talk about that later this hour with State Senator David Blount. It's Middays with Gerard Gibert from the Element Wealth Studios. I'm Scott Sands filling in. It's great to be back on the radio in what I consider my home state of Mississippi. C Spire text line open as well at 601-879-4395. This morning, it may be happening now. I'm not sure exactly what time it's scheduled to begin. Ukrainian President Zelensky meeting with President Donald Trump in the White House. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is joining me now on Middays with an update. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a retired Department of Defense intelligence operative, now president of Project Sentinel. We have no video, I don't believe, with the Colonel, but he's joining us on audio on supertalk.fm. Colonel, it's great to talk with you. I appreciate all your time on my radio show, and good to catch up with you here.
Sure, Scott. Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
So as we look back on the last 3 years of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia, how did President Biden screw this up? It seems like this was something that we should have been able to support our ally in Ukraine and help them to repel. And I think many people, and as you and I have talked about over the last few years, were surprised that Ukraine was able to battle as hard and as successfully as they have. And I don't think anybody expected it to last 3 years.
No, I don't think anybody expected it to go this long, especially since it's essentially World War I style trench warfare where nobody does well and everybody dies. So it's been a bad war from that perspective. Scott, to answer your question, Biden never wanted to win. You don't pick competent generals and throw money at something if you really want to win. Could you imagine if this was World War II and Roosevelt said, yeah, we're just going to give the British a few $100,000, maybe $1 million or $2 million. Good luck with help beating the Germans. That we had to be involved, we had to be invested, and we had to have basically people like Eisenhower, like Bradley, other leaders who were willing to fire people to pick a course that would actually result in victory. We didn't do that, and I think it was done purposely. I think the money that was sent over, we're going to come to find, was largely sent off to other areas. That's the second area is Democrat corruption. I don't think the money that we did actually spend went to where it was supposed to be, which is to support Zelensky in Ukraine. So these are all things which are bad. It's past the point of recovery. And at this point, I think President Trump is going to do what Reagan did. Reagan was able to sit in front of the Russians, Gorbachev, and play a game of poker. And we obviously came out on top. I think that's what Trump's going to do now.
So I've got a couple of friends who used to work for President Zelensky in the administration that I communicate with on a regular basis, and they're saying the same thing. That the money is not getting to the troops. It's not getting where it needs to go to win the battle. And the old adage here, I think it's true, that you don't just throw money at a problem. You've got to have a plan and a way out. But we've sunk billions of dollars into defending Ukraine. And many people may disagree with me on this. I think we should. We need to stand up and help Ukraine defend their borders. I think it's a danger to allow Russia into Ukraine, and I don't think they would stop just with that one country. But this whole approach that we've seen for the last 3 years is not a winning strategy.
You and I would disagree on that point. I don't think Russians are out to be the aggressor they were during the Cold War. I think Putin has been trying to put the band back together. That is the old Soviet Republic or Soviet states back into the Republic. But I don't think, Scott, especially by the fact that they didn't go after all of Ukraine. They don't want all of Ukraine. All of Ukraine would be a pain in their butt to rule. I mean, last thing you want is rebel groups doing everything they can to disrupt commerce. What they want to do, and I think that's why President Trump has been successful, is reestablish a path to a commercial and diplomatic framework that allows for trade to happen. Trade and commerce are the languages of peace. And I think, as President Trump has said, it's like, look, we're not going to do military guarantees to Ukraine. We're going to invest by putting U.S. businesses there. And that is a form of security guarantee. If you have U.S. businesses there, the Russians aren't going to attack, because if they attack our businesses, we will respond. So I think that's what Trump is trying to do. And the Russians were guaranteed back in 1994, under the Budapest Accords, that NATO wouldn't move east, and it did. So, unless we're able to understand and deal with their grievances, we will not see a resolution. And I think that's what President Trump's trying to do right now, is actually win by acknowledging what their issues are, but then doing the Reagan thing by actually doing things which undermine their ability to conduct military operations or war.
We're talking to retired intelligence operative Tony Shaffer. Colonel, what's the end game here? The talks with Zelensky, I hope, are productive today. Yeah. How do you think this conflict will end?
We own Ukraine. That's what it is. We basically have bought Ukraine.
And that's exactly where I was going with this. Strategically, how important are these mineral rights that President Trump is negotiating for with both Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, hugely important. Right now, the other big adversary, China, has a corner on rare earths. So this is huge. And I think, again, Scott, this is good for the region. If we can get together and pull Russia away from China by relieving them, that is, the Russians, of any concern regarding our being an aggressor to them. They are paranoid. People have to understand, Scott. I've said this on your show before, the Russians have been invaded. You can't change the momentum of 1,000 years of paranoia. It's just not going to happen. So accept they're paranoid, manage the paranoia, manage it to our benefit. I think, if we can pull them away from the Chinese, that's great. And then the rare earth issue is something that we then can focus on with the EU. Remember, the other people who benefit from this, and despite the fact they don't like it, is the European Union. If we can help get rare earths from Europe, in Europe, to create a industrial capacity that challenges China, that's what we want. That's where we need to go. So this deal today, I think, puts us in a very positive direction. Whether the Europeans and British like it or not, we're going to drag them into success one way or another.
Do we then need to invest, and I use that term invest loosely, more money, billions of dollars more to rebuild Ukraine? That's kind of been America's habit over the years after all of these major conflicts.
Yeah, to your point, look, Japan is a thriving democracy Germany. Look at Germany. As much as, I think there's been some critical issues, the reconciliation of the East and West Germany have made them a powerhouse in Europe. South Korea. South Korea is another area of success. So, yeah, I think it's inevitable if we are able to go in with commerce, leading with investment, not with military. I think everybody will benefit. And again, Scott, let me be very clear on this, because this is what President Trump and his cabinet have said. You don't need U.S. forces on the ground if you've got U.S. investors working to actually develop the region, and I think that's where it's all going to go.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer here on Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Your X handle, and you and I in the past have talked about this, is T-Spooky. And just quickly, we've got about a minute here. The Epstein files, or some of them, were released yesterday. There's a lot of speculation now on social media, a lot of rumors that part of the reason why these files have been withheld for as long as they have. And I know you talked about this, I think, on Newsmax yesterday. Was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence operative? Is that why so much of this information has been redacted? And because phase one was really nothing burger, as they say. And I know you're intimately involved with UAPs, the UFO investigations. As all of these files are released, President Trump, will we actually learn anything this year?
So there's an interesting perspective I think people have to understand that was put out by Elon Musk. Scott, we're dealing with the bureaucracy, which has had, speaking of paranoia, we've had a bureaucracy which has had over 70 years to solidify its ability to hide things. That includes the JFK issue, the UFO issue, and of course the Epstein issue. So people, as much as I'm aggressive in wanting, and 9/11, another area we didn't mention. 9/11 is something that I think I know for a fact there's going to be declassification of things, and certain things I know I have to get approval from DOD to talk about, which I think DOD is going to give that approval, which is going to change the very fabric of our understanding of 9/11. I think all these things take time. So you can't get the bureaucracy to give up secrets without getting people in there who are able to get them out. And if they can't get them out, we're going to prosecute people for having destroyed documents. But I think we're going to get a lot of stuff out, but it's going to take about 6 months to get everything out.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, I'm Scott Sands. Middays with Gerard Gibert from the Element Wealth Studios on SuperTalk, Mississippi. We'll cover some headlines, what's happening around Mississippi next.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here on SuperTalk, Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands, sitting in for Gerard in the Element Wealth studio. Today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, an interview with President of Northwest Community College. It's presented by Superior Catfish. Remember, there's catfish, then there's Superior Catfish, which I got to tell you is one of the things, Rhino and Ben, I miss the most about living in the South is good fried catfish. I live here in Toledo. I'm doing the show on SuperTalk Mississippi from Ohio today. I just happened to see a place down the street that looks like a nice southern, and I mean this in the best way, a hole in the wall. And out front, it just got a sign that says fried catfish. So I'm dying to go in there and try it and see if it lives up to the hype. But I do miss that. Ben Milam from SuperTalk Mississippi News is joining us now on Middays. It's nice to meet you, Ben. Thanks for sitting in for a few minutes.
Yeah, you too, Scott. Good to be here, man.
So one of the stories I saw this week is this whole debate that's happening in Clarksdale over an editorial in that city's newspaper that's kind of resulted in a lawsuit. Tell me what's happening with this and why it's a big deal.
Yeah, so I think at this point, a lot of people have probably heard about this because there was there was really a national response to really this whole sequence of events, but it started early February 8th to be exact. An editorial was published by the Clarksdale Press Register, local newspaper there in Clarksdale, and it was a critical editorial because the city of Clarksdale, they met regarding it. They had a special meeting about a tax resolution on sin tax, which would have I believe it was a 2% tax on tobacco and
all the fun stuff,
alcohol, right? And the sinful stuff too.
Those of us who have vices have to pay a little bit more than everybody else.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And the editorial basically was critical because the city did not notify media in accordance with the open meeting statute. And that was basically the gist of it. The title of it was "Secrecy, Deception Erode Public Trust." And so that was the basic drive of this article. The city responded by filing a lawsuit based on citing libel. And really, when this really started to kind of kick up, the dust storm really started spinning, is when a Hinds County judge made an order based on that lawsuit, in adherence with that lawsuit, following the request of the city to demand that the Press Register remove this editorial, which again was opinion. It was listed as such, saying that it was libelous and it was untrue. That's where the larger concern of this came from, and when the national response started was citing First Amendment. Obviously, that's what people went to, and I think a clear breach of that is what people were decrying based on this judge's order. And Wyatt Emmerich, the owner of this newspaper, pointed out that this was not this order was not put down or executed by a local judge. It was a judge in central Mississippi, away from the Delta where this was going on in Clarksdale. And so it was all just kind of a really fuzzy situation and kind of shaky legal ground that this order was made. And this week, a couple of days later, the city removed this lawsuit. And of course, the judge's order was still upheld because that that had been initiated, and then yesterday we got word that the judge's order had been removed. So it all felt like it was because of this national response and First Amendment concerns that the city backed down, the judge backed down from her order, the Hinds County judge. And as of right now, we haven't heard of whether they're going to put this editorial back up. But, in the day and age of when
the damage is done at this point.
Yeah, you're right. And I think a lot of people, the editorial has been put out there online, and so it's down, quote unquote. But I think a lot more people have read it now than they would have otherwise.
Right. Probably this whole thing probably drew much more attention to the topic than
much more
than ever would have been raised if they just let it alone. And I got to tell you, from the city's perspective, it's probably not the best way to garner favorable news coverage by suing the local newspaper. That might backfire on them at some point.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say it did, Scott.
On a local level, you've got some municipal elections coming up soon, and the deadline is coming up to register as a voter for that.
That's right, Monday. Yeah, and spoke with Secretary of State Michael Watson about this early this week, late last week. But we talked about the fact that obviously the national attention, local attention, state attention was on the federal presidential election last year, and we had some important statewide races as well. But you kind of, you have a little bit of election exhaustion, I think, following such an intense cycle like that. And so we really want to make sure people know that the deadline to register to vote for municipal primary elections, which are on April 1st in Mississippi this year, so just over a month away. And that's one of the things that Secretary Watson said. You can make the argument that those are more important elections in terms of how it's going to directly affect you as a Mississippian in your specific municipality. Are those local elections, the people that have the power to raise and lower your local taxes that are going to affect you every single day? And so Monday, March 3rd. If you have not registered to vote, put it on your calendar. Obviously, you've got time today or all day Monday to get it done, but that's a very important thing to do.
These local municipal elections are so important because they do affect our lives directly every day. And in an off-cycle year, in an off-cycle election, I don't know, I should have looked up some of the numbers for Mississippi, but turnout is always just absolutely abysmal. I've seen some off-cycle elections here in Toledo, Ohio, where I live now, where we've seen voter turnout under 13% for local elections, which is embarrassing.
Yep, and I think that rings true in Mississippi as well. And I think especially after the year following a really big intent, you can follow the 2016 election, or I guess maybe the last two presidential elections or last three. That following year, the municipal turnout is drastically lower than it typically is, or really needs to be, frankly. And I actually think there's a connection between these two stories we're talking about. I think local and personal, we kind of miss that these days. With the firestorm that is social media, we can focus on who's in the White House and who is on Capitol Hill and what's happening in California or wherever else way off, and we can kind of miss what we really need to focus on and what really matters in some ways is at the local level, be that the media or the city council or who's up for these municipal elections, mayoral or otherwise. It is as important as ever and maybe more important than it ever has been.
Ben, this story, and I don't know why this came up in my feed, but as I've been getting ready for today, this is such a small story, but I'll tell you why it caught my attention. There is an initiative in Jackson to plant trees. Now, normally this is not anything I would ever talk about, but I love this idea because 500 trees being planted in Midtown Jackson from the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation, the Arbor Day Foundation, and Amazon, which I love this because here's why this story caught my attention. We're going through the same thing in Toledo, Ohio, where I am now, with 907 trees that are supposed to be planted in the city at a cost of, get this, $6 million to plant 900 trees. But the money, and the reason why it's costing $6 million is because the money was initially coming from a federal grant, which now, under the Trump administration and under DOGE, looks like it's going to be cut, which is good. And I'm not against beautifying a city or the benefit that trees bring to the environment. They're excellent for air quality, property values, urban aesthetics, all of those things. But $6 million, I did the math when I was talking about this locally. I think that came down to like $7,000 a tree or some ridiculous number. And now because that grant may be gone, they're going to increase property taxes in Toledo to plant the trees. Why? I clipped this article to send to Mayor Capscavage here in Toledo and say, look, you got 500 trees that are being done with a local foundation through local coordinations, through donations. We don't need to raise taxes to plant some trees.
Yeah, hey, if you give me $6 million, I'll go find 900 seeds or little trees, and I'll plant them around wherever you want. But this is, it's, again, local level, people who care about their community doing something that directly affects quality of living in Jackson, Mississippi. You love to see it.
Yeah. State Senator David Blount will join me in just a minute where we'll talk more about online sports wagering in the state of Mississippi. That's Ben Milam from SuperTalk Mississippi News in the Element Wealth Studios. Middays with Gerard Gibert. My name is Scott Sands. It's great to be on the radio back home in Mississippi, and I'd love to hear from you as well on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Go ahead and chime in with your thoughts on whether or not online sports wagering should be legal in Mississippi.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I gotta tell you, time is flying by. This has been fun. I appreciate being invited to sit in and guest host for Gerard. My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X and the social platforms at Scott Sands Media. We're in the Element Wealth Studio on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Next hour, we'll kind of preview the Oscars, talk more about this Gene Hackman story, which is kind of weird, and the Epstein list comes into play as well. Mississippi State Senator David Blount is joining me now. He is the chairman of the Senate Gaming Committee and vice chair of the Senate Education Committee, representing Senate District 29, which I just looked at. Man, that's all gerrymandered to hell. Senator, it's great to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
So, what's the deal with sports wagering in Mississippi? And I live here in Ohio now. We just had legalized online sports wagering passed about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and it's bringing in a ton of money. What's been the delay in Mississippi?
Well, the difference, I'm not familiar with Ohio, but the difference between Mississippi and a lot of other states is that we have a well-established casino industry in our state. I think if we didn't have casinos in Mississippi, we would have already had mobile sports betting in Mississippi. But because we have about almost 30 casinos in the state, and they employ tens of thousands of people. Anytime we have a bill dealing with gambling in any form, we go to the people who are in that business, who have invested a lot of money in that business and employ an awful lot of people, directly and indirectly. The casino industry to date is evenly divided, 50-50, in terms of the ownership groups in the state as to whether they think this is going to help their business or hurt their business. The proponents of mobile sports betting often are the bigger companies. They're international companies that already have existing relationships with the folks you see advertising on TV anytime you try to watch a ball game. The smaller operators don't have access to those apps, and about 4 apps control about 90% of the market in the country. And so the industry itself is
But there are dozens of apps that are gaining in popularity all the time. We've got casinos in Ohio as well, and it seems like the way I've read at least one of the bills is that it would be a win-win. Casinos get a cut, bettors get convenience, the state gets some tax revenue. And Senator, you and I have never talked before, so I honestly don't know where you stand on this issue. First of all, do you gamble at all? Do you bet on games at all? Because if I were you in Mississippi, I would have been taking the over on Ole Miss football and the under on the Mississippi State football team total all season long and made a killing.
No, I don't. But I appreciate the fact, again, that tens of thousands of Mississippians work in this business, and they support their families and they work hard. So what is the impact on those jobs? The reason we have gaming in Mississippi, and it's been more than 30 years, long before since I got elected to the legislature, is to encourage investment, to create jobs, and to grow tourism to bring other people from other places to Mississippi. Mobile sports betting doesn't do that. Mobile sports betting is in a lot of states, and a lot of people want to do that, and I respect that, but it is a different product than the product that we already have.
But with all due respect, Senator, the people aren't coming into the casinos for the most part to wager on sports either. They might do that while they're there. They're coming in to play the slots and the table games, and for I saw the all-you-can-eat buffet is coming back to Boomtown Casino as well. What this does provide the state is more revenue, so you don't have to tax income and property as much as you might. I think what the bill in Mississippi would be a 12% tax on sports wagers. 8% goes to the state, 4% to local governments. That's about $40 to $80 million annually.
That's not what I hear. I have seen billboards around town from the proponents that I saw one this morning on High Street, driving to the Capitol, for $20 million. Look, the revenue argument to me is if you're up here wanting to cut taxes by $2 billion, if you're up here wanting to reduce the revenue to the state by $2 billion, and then you say, well, we really need this, we really need that $20 million, well, that's 0.0000002% of the tax cut. So the revenue argument to me, when you're talking about eliminating $2 billion from the state budget, to me is not a legitimate argument. A legitimate argument would be there are people who want to do this, and they can do it in other states.
Yeah.
So that's a legitimate argument, but don't talk to me about the need for revenue when you're decimating the revenue to the state.
Well, there are people in Mississippi who want to do this. We're talking to State Senator David Blount here, Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi. Louisiana went live with mobile betting in January of 22 with a 15% tax rate and collected, I believe, $52.2 million, which is significant. And as you talk about consumer demand, since the NFL season kicked off last fall, the state of Mississippi logged nearly 9 million attempts to access legal mobile sports books. So people obviously want this, and instead they're going to illegal offshore betting sites, which is bleeding the state dry.
That's right. Many people are doing that. The Senate has passed a strong bill, a bipartisan bill, at the request of the Gaming Commission to crack down on these illegal operators. I think everybody wants to do that, regardless of where you stand on this issue. That bill is awaiting action in the House. This is something the Gaming Commission has asked for, something that has worked in Tennessee. So we're trying to take action and have a tough law to deal with the stuff that's going on in the state that is illegal.
So, Senator, what's the next step? I believe there's a bill. It's got to get out of committee, I think, by next week, right?
Tuesday, yes.
Yeah. So I'm not in Mississippi, so I haven't been following this debate closely. What kind of support does it have in the legislature?
Well, it did pass the House. I have had some people in the Senate who have talked to me about it. I've had some people in the Senate who are opposed to it. I mean, as I said, the industry is divided 50-50. There are a lot of casino owners in this state that believe that this is going to hurt their business and is going to move from brick and mortar casinos and people having to come to the casino to gamble to increasingly gambling on your phone. There are 7 states in the country that allow complete iGaming on your phone, not just sports betting, but poker. And if you're in Ohio, they have in West Virginia, you can play poker, you can play slots, you can do everything you can do on a casino on your phone. There are people who believe that that's where this is headed. I think that would be a disaster. I'm not for anything. Now, to be fair to my friends in the House, the bill does not allow for that, the bill this year, but there is a clear move in states around the country because they see it as easy revenue to move towards full-on iGaming. And I have concerns that once people start betting on their phones, and you're seeing an increased number of problem gaming, dramatic increases in problem gaming, probably where you live and other places, that there's risk there. So I'm just being cautious until we see what the full impact is on casinos in states that have casinos and on problem gaming in the states.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with you that iGaming could perhaps potentially impact casinos more than sports wagering would. The problem here in Ohio, where it's been legal for, as I said, a couple of years, is that the governor, Mike DeWine, a Republican, and many of the Republican legislature here are opposed to all of these vices that many of us enjoy. And now in Ohio, they're wanting to almost double the tax rate on online sports wagering for the worst reason possible, Senator, and that's to pay for a new stadium for the Cleveland Browns. I can't think of a worse use of taxpayer money than to support the Browns right now, or certainly to pay for a new stadium.
I can't speak to what's going on in Cleveland, but again, what the impact is for just mobile sports betting on bricks and mortar casinos is something that I'm concerned about, and I think that's why half of the casino operators in this state are opposed to the bill.
Yeah, what does that do, in your opinion, to the ability to attract tech-savvy entrepreneurs to the state? Wouldn't that be a boon as well?
No, I don't think there's any relationship. I think tech-savvy entrepreneurs are probably smart enough to know that if you're gambling, ultimately you're going to end up losing. And we want to attract tech-savvy entrepreneurs to the state, but I don't think whether or not we have mobile sports betting or not is going to play any part of that discussion.
State Senator David Blount, it's nice to meet you. I appreciate your time. It's nice to meet you, and thanks for having this conversation with us.
Thank you, Scott, for having me on. Have a nice weekend.
I see some comments coming in about this as well on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. You can also text me directly if you want on X at Scott Sands Media. Certainly, I think, I don't know if you're a gambler, Rhino, and when I talk about putting money on the line on some of these games, I'm talking about $5, $10 bets or a plus 10,000 odd parlay that may never pay off. But I think it makes gaming a little bit more exciting. It certainly would add a new dimension to the Egg Bowl next year.
And it gives you a reason to pay attention to games you otherwise wouldn't normally really care about.
Right, like I almost made a joke about Bulldogs football, but as an Alabama fan, I'll ignore that for now. It's Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands. Thank you for listening from the Element Wealth Studio on SuperTalk Mississippi and SuperTalk.fm.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Getting in Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi in the Element Wealth Studio. Some interesting texts coming in on the C Spire text line in response to our conversation about online sports wagering. Thomas wanted to know how much they, I assume meaning the casinos, donate to Senator Blount. I'm not going to make that allegation. I don't know. I'm sure Gerard and Richard know much better what's happening in those kind of dynamics than I do. Also a text from Mike in Simpson County saying we don't need politicians determining what's good for the people. Give the people what they want. And with 9 million attempted logins to the legal online betting apps in Mississippi last year, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that people want to be able to bet the over-under on the number of touchdowns Jackson Dart can throw. Which, by the way, look, I do gamble every once in a while. I think it's been a good idea in some states like Ohio where they've taken the players in college sports out of it because I've seen too many times some of these younger athletes getting inundated and doxxed on social media after screwing up a game. Also a text here that says, I've been playing slots on a casino website for years with real money and hasn't stopped him from going to the casinos one bit. I think it enhances the opportunity. And what we've seen here in Ohio is that less than 8% of gaming revenue is coming from in-person, in-casino, in brick-and-mortar sports wagering. You can go there, you can create a great sports bar, but most of the online wagering, and again, the tax revenue for the state is going to come from the online apps, which I do think is a good thing in the end. We talked with Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer earlier this hour about a White House meeting between Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Trump, which I think is either just concluded or is ongoing. And from some of the reports I'm seeing online, has been fairly heated at times. This is a quote that I'm seeing now from AP with Trump addressing Zelensky directly saying, the problem is let me try to do my best, Trump. Rhino, judge me on this. I don't do impressions well at all and never have. The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy, and I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. Is that passable? Does anybody on SuperTalk do a decent Trump?
I mean, that was better than I can do.
Your people are brave, but you're either going to make a deal or we're out of it. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. So things apparently are getting a little heated in that White House conversation, with Trump even telling Zelensky that you're gambling with World War III, especially, I guess, in terms of dealing with the NATO alliance. We'll get into this more. Hogan Gidley, we had our first and really only, I think, in my opinion, screw up of the day so far when Hogan got his times confused. So he'll join us later this hour and could give us some insight into the dynamics between Donald Trump's negotiating skills and what might be happening in the White House with President Zelensky. Just because it is Friday, I clipped a few fun stories for us this afternoon. Have you ever had a nutria, Rhino?
No, I've never had the pleasure of dining on nutria, but I am aware of their existence.
It's a rat. It's a big, giant rat that's all over the place in Louisiana.
Apparently some people swear by it.
Yeah. I have actually had nutria before. It's not something I would go out intentionally to order, but living in Louisiana when I did, I had the opportunity to try it. And I, as I remember it, and maybe this is just me trying to put a positive spin on things, I remember it tasting a little bit like rabbit or maybe dark meat from turkey. And the reason why I clipped this, it has nothing to do with Mississippi or Louisiana, but it's just, I didn't know that they were referred to as nutria anywhere else, but they have nutria in California. And apparently they're wreaking havoc on the ecosystem in California. So the Department of Fish and Wildlife in California now want you to eat more nutria because they are damaging. The number I saw is that the nutria can consume up to 1/4 of their body weight in vegetation every day. So it's a very invasive species. And California Fish and Wildlife rolled out a slogan: "Save a swamp, saute a nutria." I don't know if that's going to be a winning slogan by any means. I think I had the nutria fried, which if you're going to eat a food like that for the first time, having it fried is probably the best way to try it. Sure, I'll try a sauteed nutria. Put a nice little Cajun seasoning on it. It's probably pretty good. I just had no idea that these rats were invasive in other states other than Louisiana, but apparently they've been everywhere. And it's also, I think, ironic to see California encouraging anybody to eat any sort of meat at all, given some of their other state takes on that in the environment. Rhino, I'm going to have you send me some nutria from Mississippi sometime.
Now I'm just I want somebody out there to use all the AI tools available to us to recreate the sharks and the jets from West Side Story, but have it be nutria versus New York rats.
Right. Gulfport Mayor Billy Hewes will join us on Super Talk Mississippi next. We've got Fox News and Super Talk Mississippi News coming up in the Element Wealth studio. If you're thinking about or planning for retirement, do you have a plan? That's the first question you got to ask. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 and let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. And for Gerard Gibert, I'm Scott Sands on Super Talk Mississippi.
Everybody move your hips. Go on or let your back go slip. Give it everything you got. You got to move it while the groove is hot. Everybody just live
it. Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply. And look beyond political posturing. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert, here on Super Talk Mississippi.
So Gerard may challenge you to think deeply. I'm not sure how challenging I am today, but it's nice to be here on Super Talk Mississippi and be in the air across my home state. I'm Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Rhino, got a couple of texts about nutria during the top of the hour break. Somebody said that nutria dumplings are delicious. I'm all in, man. I would try that. C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. We're in the Element Wealth studio on Super Talk Mississippi, and I'm joined now by Gulfport Mayor Billy Hewes, also drummer in the band Cut Bait, which I assume after your term limited out, Mayor, is going to be your career path of choice.
Of choice, maybe not the option that as much as I want, because my wife has told me I'm coming to work for her. But we'll be playing some music for sure.
It's good to talk to you, Billy, and I love that you're wearing the traditional Mardi Gras colors. If you're watching the video on supertalk.fm and YouTube, it's great to have you on the Friday before Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year. We get to celebrating early, and if you're involved in any cruise, a lot of folks don't know this, but the lead up to Mardi Gras starts in late summer, early fall, and the crews start to get together because it changes every single year, and there's a lot of fanfare. And then you get to this time of the year after the first of the year where, you have your balls and your parades and things. And our parade is going to be tomorrow.
Gemini.
I think Pascastan, that's right. Pascastan is going to have theirs Saturday. They're in Neptune. The Gulf Coast Carnival is, Monday evening ball, Tuesday all day. So it's just a real festive time here. That is a community event, as one of my buddies said. Our heritage requires it of us. So we have a big time. And plastic beads, they are high valued. Over the next few days, they really are priceless. And then on Ash Wednesday, they have no value at all. So
right,
it's funny.
And things are a little more family friendly on the coast than in say New Orleans come Mardi Gras weekend. And this, I love Mardi Gras is my favorite time of the year, and I miss it being up north where you mentioned Fat Tuesday and Mardi. They have something up here called a punch key. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's basically a filled donut. Which we'll all enjoy on Fat Tuesday. But some friends got together to play poker, and I wanted to bring a king cake, and I searched everywhere for king cakes up here, and finally found a Gambino's king cake at a boutique grocery store, and nobody knew what it was. I think I may have been the only one to try it. It was very disappointing.
Well, I will tell you, you can just about mail order anything these days, and a lot of the really good bakeries, they will ship to you all around the world. If you really need a king cake fix, they can get it to you.
Yeah, at a low cost of like $300 for a king cake.
Yeah, we're pretty close, but
Gulfport Mayor Billy Hewes here on Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands. Mayor, are you concerned at all about security after what happened in New Orleans? I've known past chiefs of police in the city, and Gulfport are very safe. The parades in Gulfport, as far as I know, have always been fairly safe.
They have been. You'll have an incident here and there, and you always have to be vigilant and prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And it's one thing when you mix alcohol with fun, and there's an abundance of both, and some people get irresponsible. But with respect to today's day and age, you can't be too cautious. You can't plan enough, and even the best laid plans, it only takes one lone actor, one lunatic to ruin it for everybody and create just a horrific situation. So everybody's taking the precautions they can, and fortunately, knock on wood, we've been blessed to have some pretty, like you said, family-friendly activities and events, and just things that are easy to get to, easy to get out of, and just overall a good sense of fun and celebration of our culture.
How many people are you expecting for Gemini tomorrow?
I would say a couple thousand, at least on the parade route. It just depends. The weather's going to be really good, so it may be 5,000. But it's, thousands of folks come out. And what happens is, Scott, people will move, or kind of gravitate. They'll plan their whole weekend schedule, the 4-day weekend, moving from one to another, and sometimes in the same day.
Yeah, that, and
I'm jealous. What's neat is seeing the parents.
I'm jealous of the coast weather right now. I think it's about 25, 30 degrees. So, right, What I missed, I worked in radio in high school when I was in high school at St. John with your brother Michael. I didn't get to go to a lot of parades with my friends because I was always in the parades for the radio station, so I missed out on a lot of those experiences.
Yeah, but being able to ride a float's a pretty special thing now. You just got to prepare and you wear your arm out if you brought enough beads. But, it's fun just being able to go. So you may have missed being on the route, but, it sounds like you had a little bit of a part of it. But I understand what you're saying. All your buddies are out there kind of gathering up and having a couple of cool ones and catching a bunch of beads and just some fellowship. And maybe even some gumbo cooking going on, or this time we're starting to get into the crawfish season too. So it's just, again, we celebrate over food down here, and it's a big part of it. So you may have missed some of that, but there's always opportunity. Find your way back.
Yeah, I need to. I need to plan the trip down this time of year instead of in the summer as I usually do for our class reunions. How important is Mardi Gras? Gulfport and the coast have so much going on. How important is it to tourism revenue for the coast?
Tourism's been our bread and butter, and we're always looking for ways to keep it year round. And we do everything like cruising the coast that happens in October, which kind of extends it from the summer season. And then we started the Harbor Lights Winter Festival, a great Christmas show that really takes it all the way through to New Year's. And so Mardi Gras, it just works out timing wise, where you get a little bit of breather right after Christmas, but then it's right back at it. And so it's a huge part of it. I couldn't tell you right now what the economic benefit, the multiplier is, but it is substantial with the locals. And, you're purchasing a lot of things from, you talk about shop local. It is definitely a local type of deal.
Yeah, and I'd love to see other cities in the state capitalize on Mardi Gras season as well. I know there are some parades to a smaller degree in Hattiesburg and Laurel, Jackson. I don't know if Meridian has any crews, but extend that through the state. I mean, it's an important Southern tradition this time of year that I would love to see other cities in the state of Mississippi take advantage of. But you've got a lot going on the coast too. I know one of your initiatives has been the blue economy, which really ties everything that's happening on the coast together for the benefit of everybody who lives there.
Well, we've always been that maritime community, and sometimes you can take for granted what you've got there, this vast, wonderful resource, both fresh and salt water. And what we found with the total retooling of the port, with the $500 million from Katrina recovery funds under the direction of Governor Barber, you've got a state-of-the-art state port here. And then you've got the University of Southern Mississippi creating their School of Oceanographic Sciences, and then the creation of the Roger Wicker Center for Ocean Enterprise. We call it the Center for Awesomeness. But you've got the Naval Oceanographic folks. You've got NOAA down there occupying that. And then you've got a company called Ocean Aero. So there's a lot of research and development here. And so this Center of Excellence that Governor Bryant helped to establish, I think is going to be the place in the Gulf of America for a lot of research and development to be had. And folks are starting to beat the path here. A lot of companies and businesses and even families seeing the cost of living is pretty remarkable. This year-round weather, with the exception of 3 days of snow, it's a pretty special place to be. And the people are easy, the food's great. There's just so many good reasons to be here. And once people get here, they say, we probably want to stay. And we're seeing more investments happen. So the blue economy is just something that has been that's something that, for lack of a better term, snowballing and growing and getting a lot of attention. So it's exciting.
I love seeing what's happening, especially along the coast, which I consider to be home. I've got so many lifelong friends that are there. And last time I was in Gulfport, your brother Michael and his wife Kay were kind enough to let me stay at their house, and I took their golf cart around downtown Gulfport and barely recognized a lot of places. There's been so much development since I left. The beautiful aquarium, which I'd love to visit. The Rice Pavilion area is just completely expanded and beyond what I would have comprehended in high school in the 80s. So you've been doing a great job, and it's great to see the coast area and the coast economy thriving the way it has.
Yes, Scott, we believe the aquarium could be a catalyst. This is a great place to come live, work, and play, and for adults in particular, but we needed that family draw, and the aquarium has been that. And now we're seeing businesses and restaurants and other folks coming in and really enjoying what we have to say and doing some really serious investing. So if you think it's changed over the last few decades, just stay tuned.
Gulfport Mayor Billy Hewes, find him on X, Billy Hewes, and City of Gulfport, and find his band Cut Bait somewhere playing around the area. Have a great Mardi Gras, Billy. It's great to see you.
They say les bon temps roulés, Scott. See you, man.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands, filling in from the Element Wealth Studios. We'll be back with former Principal Deputy White House spokesperson Hogan Gidley next.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
In the Element Commonwealth Studio on SuperTalk Mississippi and SuperTalk.fm. Scott Zanz in for Gerard. Thank you so much for letting me sit in today. It's been a lot of fun. And Rhino, I think you've only had to hit the buzzer for something I've screwed up twice, and that was in the first hour. So I don't want to jinx anything, knock on wood, but I think the last hour has been going well.
Yeah, we sent the gremlins running. We haven't had to find any more recently.
I got a text from Adam on the C Spire text line that said, Scott, y'all don't even have sweet tea and chocolate gravy in Ohio. I have stopped ordering tea up here because when I order sweet tea, they look at me like I'm crazy and have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're missing out.
Hogan Gidley is joining us now. He is vice chair for the Center for Election Integrity at the America First Policy Institute, former national press secretary for the Trump campaign, and former principal deputy press secretary in Trump's first administration. A lot going on in the White House today, and things getting kind of heated, and we'll get to that in just a second, Hogan. It's great to have you back on my show and talk to you again, and you're on the air in Oxford. You're an Ole Miss guy, so I'll say it once as a Bama guy, hotty toddy.
Howdy toddy to all my folks there in Oxford, Mississippi. Always paying attention to what's going on over there. I was on some of the Twitter stuff today, looking at our folks in the combine, watching Pegues running routes like a fullback out of the backfield for some of those teams, watching some of our defensive ends like Jared Ivey and others. I'm really excited about the potential for Jackson Dart to move up as well. So I'm always paying attention to my Rebs.
I think Lane was really hoping that Jackson Dart was going to come back for one more season.
Well, there's no question he's very seasoned at this point, and knows the offense. Lane clearly has a lot of trust in him too. But this new kid, Austin Simmons, looks amazing in the little brief stints he's had on the field, and obviously with his background, his smarts, and his athletic ability, I think he's potentially the next great thing to come out of Oxford.
It's weird. As an Alabama fan, I wasn't keen on Lane Kiffin as Bama's OC, but I've become a big fan of him now, and I know he's gone through a lot of changes in his personal life. And other than when they play Alabama, I'm actually cheering for Ole Miss.
Well, that's good. You should. I mean, look, Bama's obviously a great team, a storied program, no question about it. We've had limited success, but some recent success against the Tide. And not getting to play them this year was a little weird. I don't think we play them next year either, with the expansion of the league, which really makes me mad. I'm sorry. I don't think any team west of Mississippi should be in the Southeastern Conference. I will always say that. I will never embrace A&M. I'm never embracing Texas. I'm never embracing – I don't even embrace Arkansas, and I grew up there, for heaven's sakes. LSU's kind of an exception because they're far enough south that maybe it counts. But, you had a guy on before from Louisiana, so it's all backwards, so they're fine down there, whatever.
And we could go on a whole tangent about this. I'm hearing rumors about a super league being formed between the SEC and the Big Ten, which I think could be interesting, but I miss – this makes me sound old. I miss the old days and when money was given to players under the table. I miss those old days, but we didn't have you on to talk football. Yeah. Hogan Gidley, now with the American First Policy Institute. You've been with Donald Trump for a long time now, and I was just watching some video of the White House meeting between President Trump and Vice President Vance and Ukrainian President Zelensky, and things got a little heated now. Is that Donald Trump's style in these kind of settings?
Well, look, I've been with him in private in many of these meetings. It rarely gets this hot, but it does when someone is trying to take advantage of America. Look, I watched this meeting. For those who haven't heard this audio or seen this, you're out driving around, whatever, understand Zelensky came to America, in essence, to do a deal so that we could begin to help them mine some of their rare earth minerals, building out potentially some plants for us in Ukraine, other things, a long-term economic deal. And I don't know if it's fallen apart or not, but it seems like Zelensky is asking for more things, more demands. And Trump's like, look, we'll get to the Russia-Ukraine stuff, but we need to get this deal in place. And that helps kind of start the train down the tracks to bring this war to an end so people don't have to die, people don't have to get maimed, places don't have to get destroyed. And I'm sorry, but the arrogance and the lack of self-awareness, the disrespect shown to America, for Zelensky to sit in that Oval Office and try to attack our country that has given him billions of dollars at this point is so stunningly stupid. I can't even see it. But this is America first. This is Donald Trump saying, listen, we're going to work to a deal, but don't come in here and dictate to me the terms. You're in no position whatsoever, is basically what he said to him, to be dictating the terms. You don't hold the cards. Your country's in free fall. You've got serious economic problems, military problems, etc. We were the ones that gave you the weaponry in the first place that stopped Russia's initial move into Ukraine. So I understand its importance, but don't come here and lecture me. And it got heated really fast. And I know people who don't like Donald Trump are going to look at that and go, look how disrespectful he is to President Zelensky of Ukraine. But I would urge them to say, this guy comes to our country after receiving hundreds of billions of dollars, doesn't say thank you, says I need more. Trump says, we're going to try to enter into a deal here that benefits both countries so we can start to get back some of the hundreds of billions of dollars we gave you by helping you mine, but us keeping some of the profit for these minerals and stuff. And it looks like it's kind of in a bad spot right now. I'm trying to pay attention to the TV to see if I hear or see anything. We don't know if the meeting's going to continue or the bilateral conversation and the press conference is going to go on. But this thing in the Oval Office was epic, and America is so back.
I think Zelensky, I hope he walked into that meeting realizing that America's checkbook was not sitting there on the Resolute desk. And I've got friends in the Zelensky administration who are formerly in the Zelensky administration in Ukraine that I speak to regularly about this, and even they're now admitting that all of that money was siphoned, that none of the money got to the people, that none of the money got to the troops, and the entire 3-year war has been completely mishandled by the Biden and Zelensky administrations. That this should have never lasted 3 years.
I think the receipts are going to matter, but remember, it was Joe Biden who told Russia it's okay if you do a minor incursion. And then once the war started, said, we're going to help Ukraine, quote unquote, as long as it takes. What does that mean? We didn't do that in Afghanistan. We did it for 20 years. We didn't do it as long as it takes. And what is it? And what does it takes mean? I mean, there was no off-ramp proposed by the Biden administration. No way they came up with any kind of solution. It was just, we're just going to keep pushing money at it. The American people said no to that. They wanted peace around the world like was installed under Donald Trump in the first place. And the American people, writ large, are a little sympathetic to spending money overseas if we need to protect us or our partners or allies. But we need receipts. And that's not something Joe Biden was asking for, not something he got. And now Donald Trump is saying, all right, you're not going to use us for your little PR stunts anymore. We need to actually come to a deal that benefits this country too, not just yours, and that moves toward a long-term peace solution as well between you and Russia. And I don't know what happened, but it looks like Zelensky just kind of said, no, I want more, or that's not good enough, or whatever he said. And I don't know if the deal's going to get done now.
Hogan,
remember, not a peace deal. This isn't a peace deal. This is an economic deal about us partnering with Ukraine to help them extract minerals and stuff from their own soil. But we get the benefit of that monetarily, so it helps our economy and our businesses.
And recoup some of those billions of dollars that we've already sent to Ukraine.
Yes.
Hogan, you were with President Trump in his first term, and we've got limited time left, but I wonder, are you surprised by the speed of action that President Trump has moved in his first month of the second term?
I want to say yes. I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I just know they had prepared so well before getting sworn in that this was going to move really quickly. As a PR person, what you want is like a good win and then drive that win for a while so people understand it. Trump's like, look, I got 2 years to really do a lot of things before Congress kind of has its own election and I become a lame duck. I got to move fast, and he is. Only in Washington, D.C., of course, would it be unique for someone to run on issues, win on issues, and then actually implement the policies he said he was going to do. And it's shocking to watch, the turnaround. I will say during the election, what I really wanted was for Donald Trump to win so that we could have the policies that made people's lives better, regardless of race, religion, color, or creed. But what I really wanted, too, was to see the meltdown from the media and the left, and they have not disappointed at all. They are going crazy right now, and I love it.
The best part is the speed, the number of executive orders coming out is so fast-paced that the media and Democrats can't even keep up. That by the time they get mad about one thing, there have been 10 other things that have come along for them to be upset about. Hogan, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for taking a few minutes this afternoon. You can find him on X and Facebook, Instagram, J. Hogan Gidley, best dressed guy in D.C. and an Ole Miss grad himself. Howdy, toddy, man. It's good to see you.
Howdy, toddy. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
From the Element Wealth studio on SuperTalk, Mississippi, I'm Scott Sands in for Gerard Gibert. We're going to have some fun, or a little bit of fun, try to anyway, with Fox News Radio Entertainment correspondent Michelle Pollino when we come back.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
How y'all doing? My name is Scott Sands. I'm in for Gerard from the Element Wealth studio on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and the YouTube channel. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the radio in the air back in my home state. And Michelle Pollino is joining me now. She's Fox News Radio's entertainment correspondent. She's been doing my radio show in Ohio for years, so it's great to connect here. And it's good to see you, Michelle. You can find her on X at Michelle Pollino as well.
Hey, Scott, miss your face, really. I do. It's been a minute.
It has been. And this weekend, I know you're going to be busy covering the Oscars, which I think are going to have kind of a somber note following the death of Gene Hackman this week.
Yeah, I mean, really, that was the big story this week is, there's an investigation ongoing into the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Kurosawa. They were found Wednesday afternoon in their Santa Fe, New Mexico compound. Now, what this investigation really centers on is the fact that the two, Hackman was 95 and in good health, according to his daughter. He was found dead in the mudroom, and Betsy was found dead in the bathroom. And they also found their dog. They had 3 dogs. One of the dogs was found dead in the closet in the bathroom. The circumstances surrounding this is what's weird, and we're going to be hearing more from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department around 5 o'clock Eastern today. And it was originally thought to be carbon monoxide poisoning. Gene Hackman's daughter still believes that it's carbon monoxide, but they did test, didn't find any. However, there were reports that the door was open, and there's also reports that their bodies were mummified, meaning that if indeed it was carbon monoxide that killed the couple, because they were in separate rooms, and it looked like they dropped because around Betsy, there was an open bottle of pills and a space heater near her head, like she just fell. Their hands were mummified, meaning they had been dead for several days, if not maybe a week or 2.
So the thought of carbon monoxide poisoning is the first thing I thought of as well. The door being ajar and the prescription pill bottles spread around leads me to wonder if there's more to the story, but the danger of carbon monoxide poisoning is real. Here in Toledo, I had a disc jockey who worked for me at the time that didn't show up for work on time, and his wife began to call me wanting to know where he was because he wasn't answering her phone calls either. And police went and did a wellness check on his apartment, found him in bed from carbon monoxide poisoning, and it took him weeks to recover from that.
Holy cow. Well, thank God he recovered. I thought you were going to tell me he's gone,
No.
But yeah, It is really suspicious. Something that I forgot to mention, the initial autopsy reports no blunt trauma, nothing on their bodies. And again, Hackman was in good health, even though he was 95 years old, and Betsy was 65.
Yeah. Fox News Radio entertainment correspondent Michelle Pollino here on Middays with Gerard Gibert. I'm Scott Sands. I'm sure there will be a tribute of some sorts this weekend during the Oscars. Michelle, you and I have talked for years. You know I don't watch these award ceremonies, and honestly,
not
probably
many people do anymore.
I know. I'm not even sure I've seen any of the movies that were nominated, to be perfectly honest. I did see Conclave, which was a streaming only movie, and decided to watch that. And this is morbid, I know, but when Pope Francis was hospitalized, I thought, well, this is a good time to watch a movie about the Conclave, and I enjoyed it. There were parts I thought were critical of the Catholic faith, but I did enjoy the movie. It was interesting to watch.
I thought it was good. I thought it went a little off the rails at the end, but I'm not going to give it away. There's not much that I liked this year, to be quite honest. Emilia Perez has been tainted. That film, it's a trans Mexican cartel musical.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I could have sworn you said it's a trans Mexican cartel musical.
That's exactly what I said. It's so odd. The concept was really odd. I couldn't get through the first 15 minutes when, Zoe Saldana started singing about sex change operations. I'm like, I'm out. I've had it.
So bizarre.
Yeah, it is bizarre. But it gets even more bizarre because, you could see it was a leading 13 nominations, and everybody was asking why. First of all, it's an international film. Like, you had really good films here coming out of the studios here, and yet they picked an international film. It could have gotten best international film. This is how far the Oscars has lost its way. And it's just, and then the trans actress who's up for Best Actress, Carla Gascon, Sophia Gascon, basically some old tweets, the old tweets, death knell, were resurfaced, and she she disparaged George Floyd, she disparaged the Oscars, they shut her down, Netflix shut her down, they wouldn't pay for any of her transportation to the ceremony. To this ceremony, that's what I'm going to be focused on to see what the reaction to her is going to be. I do think that we're going to see The Brutalist and Conclave as the big winners, although I really am hoping for Timothée Chalamet to win because his portrayal, and he just got the SAG Actor trophy for his portrayal of Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. That was still my favorite movie, A Complete Unknown and Wicked.
I haven't seen that yet, and I haven't seen Wicked yet either. Nobody, I haven't had a date drag me to see Wicked, so I consider that a win for the year.
Well, you can't smoke cigars and drink bourbon in the theaters.
I think you can in some. Maybe not the cigars, but I think some have bars now, which that might be the only way I could make it through Wicked for sure. Michelle, I do know that, like me, you're a Star Wars fan, and I saw X, the social media was very happy to see Kathleen Kennedy, I believe is her name, step down from the head of Disney because
That's correct.
So many Star Wars fans believe she completely ruined the franchise.
Yep. And unfortunately, she's not stepping down. That came out today. She adamantly said she's still working on the Mandalorian film and Sean Levy's Star Wars film. So unfortunately, Star Wars fans, I'm with you. I think she ruined the franchise myself. And even South Park. Did you see the Panderverse episode of South Park where Cartman?
I don't think I saw that one. No.
Oh, come on. Oh, you have to. Yeah. Look it up. Get your producer to find it right now. It is absolutely fabulous, in which Cartman plays like a Kathleen Kennedy type character, and he's just like slamming his fist on the table saying, just make her a woman and make her gay. Make her a woman and make her gay to every character. It's fantastic. But of course, South Park is again right ahead of the curve. This is what she's done to every character. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to find that one. Short time remaining. It is Oscars weekend, but there are no big movies opening this weekend. I did see that there's a Woody Harrelson film opening up.
Oh yeah, it's called Need D or oh my gosh, I can't remember it. Hold on.
I think it's called Last Breath.
Last Breath. It's based. Thank you. Based on a true story. Simu Liu, who was in Barbie, is also in it. It's based on a true story where these guys were doing some undersea work and their cord broke, and it's a really fantastic thriller. They obviously eventually. I won't give it away if you want to go see it in theaters, but it's a real thriller and it's based on a true story and there's a happy ending.
So during this time where I'm technically unemployed, there should be plenty of time for me to catch up on a lot of these series. I've got to watch on my list to binge watch The Landman. I need to restart and watch 1923.
The best. Yes,
I hear it's
1923
fabulous.
Also.
And I haven't even watched the final season of Yellowstone.
Sheridan.
Yeah. He's had an amazing career the last couple of years. Michelle, it's so great to see you. Thank you for your time. Find her on X and the socials at Michelle Pollino. Great to see you.
Great to see you too.
We're in the Element Wealth studio. If you're thinking about planning for retirement, you need to actually have a plan. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. And our C Spire text line is also open. Please don't text and drive. But as we wrap up Middays with Gerard Gibert, I would love to hear from you and see if we can make it through the final 12 minutes without me getting the buzzer from Rhino. C Spire text line 601-879-4395, or you can send me a message on X at Scott Sands Media.
We've sent that. Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Thank you to Gerard and Will, Rhino, Alex, Ben, everybody at SuperTalk Mississippi, Kenny Vest back on the coast for inviting me to sit in. I've had a great time. My cat Tiger is probably going to be really mad at me here in about 6 minutes when I finally let him out of the other room. He's used to being in this home studio in here with me. I heard him meowing a little bit ago. There are no cats allowed probably in the Element Wealth studio. C Spire text line is open as well at 601-879-4395 for any comments. I'll check there. And after the show on X at Scott Sands Media, there is a statement just out on Truth Social from President Trump, who says, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace." So, no deal done. that pretty much closes the door on that. Or some people are chiming in that this is maybe how the deal gets done. And there's an interesting picture of the Ukrainian ambassador to America with her head down and her head in her hand, as this is ongoing. There wasn't even a minerals deal signed. So that's a pretty strong statement, I think, from President Trump coming out of the Oval Office and out of his meeting with Zelensky that we'll follow up on, and we'll see how President Trump moves forward with Vladimir Putin on that side of bilateral negotiations now. It's the last day of February. Some things to look forward to next month. The good news, daylight saving time starts next Sunday. You'll lose an hour of sleep, but it won't get dark as early anymore. And Rhino, I did see next door in Alabama that they're moving forward with trying to abolish this time change, lock the clock in, and I know that's kind of on the federal level as well. And I don't know what the consensus is in Mississippi, but man, I would much prefer more daylight in the evening, especially here in Ohio, where I am in Toledo. During the deepest days of winter, it starts to get dark around 4:30 in the afternoon, and I find that unacceptable.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any real consensus across the Magnolia State on whether or not they would rather go with standard time or whether we'd rather go with daylight savings. And because of that, it feels like there's not a whole lot of traction to get any meaningful change when it comes to whether or not we're going to spring forward and fall back every year. Right.
In March, Major League Baseball starting in a few weeks. What team do you root for down in Mississippi? And we don't have. I guess we've got the Lions. I'm sorry, the Tigers and the now Guardians. But we've got an amazing minor league ball club here in Toledo, the world famous Toledo Mud Hens. Perhaps you've heard of them. But baseball season usually means warmer weather on the way. Who do you guys cheer for? The Braves?
Yeah, Major League, there's a pretty good split between the Braves and the Cardinals. It kind of depends on where you are in the state geographically. There are some Rangers and Astros fans sprinkled around, and there are some Yankees and Red Sox fans sprinkled around. But as far as local, a lot of the fandom goes towards college baseball because Mississippi State's been historically a dominant baseball power. Ole Miss has seen a rise in their baseball prowess. Southern Miss for years has been really good on the diamond. And we just lost the Mississippi Braves, but they are being replaced by the Mississippi Mud Monsters. And if I'm not mistaken, they're going to start their first season this season, so we have that to look forward to.
Baseball today, State and Rice are playing now. Wright State from up here in Ohio, from the Dayton area, are at Ole Miss this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Southern Miss and TCU at 5 o'clock today. Selection Sunday for March Madness in 2 weeks. I believe it's March 16th. And the SEC looks pretty good. I know Mississippi State is ranked. Alabama, Auburn, I know you probably don't want to hear about that, are doing well. LSU as well. So I think March Madness is looking good for the SEC as well. So that's a couple of weeks away. One final text message that makes me feel great to receive. Thank you. I mentioned that, yeah, I'm in Ohio now, but I'm a Southern boy. Went to high school at St. John on the coast in Gulfport, now St. Patrick, and grew up on the coast. Did radio in Hattiesburg, Laurel, and in Gulfport, Biloxi. A text message on the ceasefire text line. I feel old and yet young again listening to Scott Sands, also known as Scott in the Morning, where I was on SL 100. So thank you for that text. That means a lot to me. And hopefully I'll have a chance to sit in soon for Gerard, Richard, whoever else. Whenever you need me, I've got time right now. So I am available, and I'd love to speak with you guys again. And thanks, Rhino, Alex, Will, everybody for making me feel so welcome. I appreciate the opportunity here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Until then, if you want to find me on X at Scott Sands Media, have a great Friday. And if you're in the area, happy Mardi Gras. Please celebrate responsibly. I'll talk to you soon.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.